After just narrowly avoiding a podium at the Imola Grand Prix, Ferrari now turned their attention towards their updated rear suspension for the SF-25. And there is some good news on that front, with the actual newly updated suspension having passed the dynamic bench test and now is currently in the wind tunnel running in different aero configurations, with a timescale of this being ready and fully optimized to hit the ground running in Silverstone at the British Grand Prix in July. So we are still a month or so away from seeing this newly revised rear suspension on the SF-25. But away from all of that, let's actually discuss what we know about these changes to the rear suspension and how they should look to improve upon the major obstacle with this SF-25, which is of course the qualifying deficit, which is over half a second that they are currently losing. Now, just for a little bit of insight into what a dynamic bench test is, it is all about testing for reliability and evaluation of a wide range of parameters. We're talking, of course, structural integrity, making sure that the suspension hits all of the right key parameters to make sure that when the cars are going over the bumps and everything, that they have to be able to take the stresses that are put on the suspension through the loads. And that is essentially what this kind of dynamic bench test is all about. It is less so of optimizing the package in terms of, geometry and just the settings to get the best performance out of it, but more a reliability standpoint to, run through things with regards to suspension designs. Now that's out the way, and they can now turn their attention now in the wind tunnel to a more aerodynamic platform standpoint, because of course, as we all know, depending on where you put a suspension in terms of the suspension mounting positions on the rear crash structure and of course the gearbox casing, it's going to have an impact on the aerodynamics at the rear of the car. And that is one of the main issues with the current one that is on the SF-25 since the start of the season. It is not enabling them to run the car low enough to the ground to extract and maximize the performance that is actually available within the SF-25. And that is why we're seeing such a very disappointing qualifying trend in terms of where they're able to qualify because they can't run the car low enough, and so on and so forth. And it's like a catch-22. And as you can see, actually in terms of race pace, it is relatively okay. It's not wonderful. They are still quite a bit behind that of the two leading teams of McLaren and Red Bull. Well over half a second in race pace. It's more nearer a second. But that doesn't mean that they should be finishing any less than the top 5, I think, on current form. Because as we've seen, their actual tyre management is not an issue. In fact, I would say out of the top 4 teams, they have the best tyre management last time out in Imola, with Leclerc able to run to a lap time at which he wanted to. So I think there is no issue in terms of tyre degradation and tyre management. That is not what the issue is about. What it is all about for Ferrari is extracting all of the available performance that comes from not only the qualifying handicap that we know they have, but also then that kind of translates also into the race, particularly on heavy fuel, on the maximum level of fuel that a car will operate at the beginning of a Grand Prix. We can see as the fuel load drops down, the car gets ever more so competitive in comparison to their main rivals, which are of course the other top 3 teams outside of themselves. So if this new suspension in terms of mounting points can actually bring a lot more performance out of the SF-25 in not only qualifying trim but race trim, we're going to see a much more competitive Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc for the rest of the season from the Silverstone racetrack onwards. And that will leave around 10, 11, 12 races left of the season. So while both championships unfortunately will well and truly be long gone, which they are currently, that is the predicament Ferrari finds themselves in. But there is also a caveat to why they need to fix the suspension this year. and it is all to do with next year's SF-27, SF-26, excuse me, if they call it that, and of course the major rule changes and that is coming in play for that event, because across all Formula One teams there are very much a few pieces on the car that the kind of technology that you're using will be able to be transferred, and that is of course suspension elements, brake designs and so on and so forth, while the rest of the like front wings and rear wings and the bodywork are undergoing major changes. So it is imperative they actually get on top of these suspension issues at the rear that they currently have, because it's going to have a knock-on effect into 2026. And of course, if they don't, then 2026 suffers, therefore 2027, 2028 continues in that same vein. And it's kind of what we've seen with Mercedes, Ferrari in this kind of cycle of Formula One that we're currently in with the ground effect era cars. So while people and you may think it's not really important and they should scrap it, it actually is, according to the information that we've been given with regards to why they're spending so much time and energy on bringing this updated and revised rear suspension. Because not only will it finally allow the team to extract and utilize all of the true performance within the SF-25 that it currently is unavailable to them, it has also got a knock-on effect, hopefully in a positive direction for next season with regards to their championship. I don't know if we can call it a championship challenger for next year, because to my knowledge things aren't looking very rosy on that front. It looks like Mercedes, both on an engine point and a vehicle point, have quite an advantage over the field. Hence why the likes of Alpine have gone down the route of taking the Mercedes engine and striking a deal for next season. Anyway, that's where I'm going to wrap this video up, everyone. Hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, do leave a like on this video. And if you're new and if you enjoyed the content, do hit that subscribe button as well for all future Formula One content, not just Ferrari. Alright everyone, enjoy your week, and I'll catch you a little bit later on with some more Formula One videos. Catch you then.